All right, so we're going to start with looking at the foot and the lower limb, the ankle, the calf. When we start to look at some of these things get a little bit complex because there's a lot that goes on, but there's also not tons that we can do in terms of just standard strength training for these lower muscles. So what I want you to look at here is we have a tibia, we have a fibula. Those are the two bones in your legs. Now they're very big, they're very thick, but they've got a lot that attaches onto them. Now the big thing we look at when we look at calf, ankle, foot is the fact that the foot, if we start to zoom in here, the foot has 26 bones in it. So when we look at the whole body is made up of 206 bones. 26 are found in each foot, so that equals 52 bones in the feet alone. That's 26% of your bony your bony mass in the whole body. So when we start to look at ankle, foot, calf, these things get very, very complex. If you also just look at your ankle, it's not that it's got a whole lot of mass to it. So when we look at it, it's going to be very tendon based. There's a lot of fascia. There's a lot of smaller muscles, more intrinsic muscles. Those are going to be playing a major role. So big ones, obviously, that we're going to end up looking at. So if we look at this from the bottom, so we have a calcaneus. That's basically your heel. We start to get into and have cuboids that basically form this, cuboids and cuneiforms, basically tiny little bony joints. Then we have your metatarsals, proximal phalanxes, distal phalanxes, right? So your toes are really your phalanxes. Now, doesn't look too bad when we start to look at it from a large scale, but when we add the musculature in, now all of a sudden we start to see things get started a little bit more close. So we're going to start here at the calf, because a lot of stuff starts at the calf. So the big calf muscle that you see in the back, that is your gastrocnemius, or just your gastroc. Most people just call it your gastroc. Behind it, we have a soleus. Now, both of these come down. They attach to the back side of your calcaneus, so that's what forms your Achilles tendon. So your gastroc and your soleus come together to form your Achilles. Then we start to get in deeper. We cut away the gastroc, so there's your soleus again right at the top. And get rid of that. And then we start to see more muscles coming in here. Now, we have your flexor digitorum longus, your flexor hallucis. We start to get in fibula brevis. We start to look at the anterior side, extensor digitorum, tibialis anterior. If you get shin splints, oftentimes that's the tibialis anterior having a hard time. All right, so those muscles, if you start to look, they start to run down, right, into the ankle. They have more tendons. Zoom in down here. They run through the ankle and come all the way down, start, working on your toes, right? So like this set of tendons right there, extensor digitorum longus, that started all the way up close to your knee. All right. So when we start to look at that, now if we actually look at the foot itself, then all of a sudden we start to see everything going on the bottom of the foot. So we have your flexor digitorum brevis. So that's basically coming from your heel to your toes, flexes your toes. Extensor digitorum longus, right? We talked about that. That's coming all the way from the outside up there. Then we start to get into digit minimum, all these really complicated ones, right? I almost pronounced that wrong, so I'm just not going to pronounce it at all. Your abductor hallucis, those things that basically form the arch of your foot. Try to get it to cut away here. I'm going to see if I can spin this to make it a little easier to see. So when we start to look at this, when we look at the foot, it can splay out and it can compress. So when we look at basically your metatarsals, they can conform around a lot of things. All these muscles have to then perform a role to then get the foot to do what we want. But they're very, very compact. They're very, very small. The other thing we're going to look at, we're going to put all those muscles back. They get everything. Yes. So fascia. And this is where we really get into a crazy amount of complexity with the foot. This is why the foot is a very complex thing. Fascia, if you ever wake up, if you're watching this video and you ever worn high heels and your feet hurt the next morning, there's your nemesis right there. If we cut that away, now we got our plantar fascia. Essentially, it's different networks of fascia. This is the lateral aspect or the medial aspect of the plantar fascia. These things basically keep all the muscles in place. And when we look at basically the tension of the plantar fascia, we're able to produce a lot of force through those things. Now, if you sprain an ankle all the time, right, we start to look at some of these ligaments that get in here. So this guy right there, your anterior tib fib ligament, high ankle sprain, that's what they're talking about when you talk about, spraining your ankle there. Common ankle sprain, your anterior tib fib down low, right? So high, low, that tends to be a pretty common ankle sprain injury. Let's see if we can cut away some of this so we can see this a little bit more. So some of these, especially here on the outside, so your superior fibular retinaculum, that one's another common ankle sprain. When we talk about movements, we'll talk about inversion, eversion. But when we start to look at this, we can just see that it's very, very complex. Now, because these work in such a system, we only have so much that we can really do. So when we look at strength training, and especially doing any kind of weight training, we start to modify our known exercises in order to target these muscles better. So that's really the big thing that we're going to look at when we look at strengthening the calf, the ankle, and the foot. We're just going to be modifying most of our exercises and have very specific things that we're going to do to target different planes of motion, target different movements, and then basically taking our normal movements to then increases range of motion and then strengthen the foot, the ankle, and the calf. So there's an overview. You can see how complex it is, but at the same time, like I said, we only modify what we already know because that's going to give us a way easier base to integrate it all as a system of strength training and not just isolation exercise or sole exercises.